As we move into the latter half of Volume 8, there's a couple things we need to remember in regards to Penny. The first of which being that she's pretty injured after falling from the atmosphere, and I don't think she's actually going to be able to recover from these injuries. Sure, there's currently Klein at the Schnee Manor, who is a human doctor, but not an engineer capable of fixing the damage done to an android such as Penny. And although Penny's biology is somewhat similar to a human's, and Klein could do some superficial patchwork to help her stay stable for the time being, it's not actually going to fix the problems at hand. To do that, she's going to need, well, the resources that aren't available at the Schnee Manor, likely only available at either Pietro's workshop in Mantle, which is not accessible at the moment, or the Atlas military bases, which she's considered a traitor by everyone there. So likely Penny just won't be able to get the medical attention she needs. Not to mention, there's also the hacking that could likely, and will likely, cause further damage to Penny, if anything at all, so Penny's really not in a good situation at the moment. Not to mention people are also hunting her for the Maiden powers, etc., so things really aren't looking good. And then there's Nora, who's pretty incapacitated as well with her own injuries. Klein is definitely going to be able to help her, being brought there for the purpose of helping Nora, and I'm sure Nora would recover normally with Klein's help, but nowhere near fast enough to be able to help her friends defend against the attacks that are going to start assailing the Schnee Manor, especially when it comes to Cinder, because having a Maiden that is barreling down on her friends, especially after they've fought, I don't know, the Hound and other Grimm that might have come before that, they're going to be pretty drained already, and Cinder is going to be able to steamroll all of them. So Nora is definitely going to want to help out, and so will Penny. The only thing that's probably going to be able to stand up to Cinder, using her Maiden powers, is probably going to be another Maiden. And Penny's not going to be up to the task. So I think what's actually going to end up happening is Penny is going to sacrifice herself, giving the Maiden powers over to Nora, which could heal her in the process. I'm pretty sure magic would have some healing capabilities with it, given the broad spectrum of capabilities we've seen thus far, being able to summon the powers of nature all the way to being able to transform humans into birds, so I think it would be fully capable of healing Nora in the process of having the powers transfer over to her. At which point Penny would end up dying again, and Nora, getting the Maiden powers, would be able to stand up to Cinder and possibly be able to drive her off. And I think this fits very well with the overall Pinocchio inspiration that Penny is derived from. A lot of people did say that when Freya gave the Maiden powers to Penny in the first place, that was symbolic of her becoming a real girl, just as in the Tales of Pinocchio. But I don't think that's actually the case. I think that's more akin to the first time the Blue Fairy used her magic on Pinocchio to bring him to life from a doll, giving Pinocchio magic in a sense, just as Freya gave Penny magic. This was the first interaction of the Blue Fairy with Pinocchio that gave Penny that reason to move forward, and the transformation from a doll into a real girl will happen later once Nora retrieves the Relic of Creation. Because currently we don't know the full capabilities of the Relic of Creation. All we've been told thus far is it can be used for one purpose at a time, and it's currently being used to hold Atlas in the sky. We don't know if it can actually create anything, or if it can be used for multiple purposes, or there's certain limitations such as Jinn, where there's some number of things that can only happen every 100 years, every century, or something like that. Maybe it's constantly outputting power and can be used for something continuously, while also having a single request made of it every 100 years, or 2 requests or something like that to create an object or something of that nature. And I think a perfect opportunity would be to ask the spirit of the Relic of Creation to create a physical body for Penny that her soul can be implanted to. Not reviving her from the dead, because we already know that that is not creation, as said by the God of Light himself, who was the one who created the relics, so yeah, revival is not creation. But one way they could easily go about things is by using the Staff of Creation to transform Penny's android body into human. She would have passed on the Maiden powers at that point to Nora, and the body itself would be deceased, but Penny's memories would still be retained in her systems. By transforming that body into human, it would be an empty vessel that still had Penny's memories in it, and would just need a bit of soul to kickstart it. a bit of soul that would likely come from Pietro. He would still be at the Amity Coliseum crash site, and I'm pretty sure he and Maria didn't die when it crashed, so they will eventually be reunited, and I think using the aura transfer technology that still is in the Atlas military base, this would be Pietro's final sacrifice, giving the last of his soul for Penny, and ultimately dying in the process to revive his daughter for a final time, and ultimately completing her transformation from an artificially created person to a real girl. She would also lose a lot of the capabilities she had as an android, not be able to fly, not be able to manipulate all of the different blades she would have, and she wouldn't have the Maiden powers anymore, those now belonging to Nora. And this would be the final arc of Pinocchio, her being brought to life, and she would go on living as more of a normal huntress without the powers that she previously had. And I do think that this chain of events would fit very well with Penny's Pinocchio inspiration, because the reason that the Blue Fairy finally changed Pinocchio into a real boy was because Pinocchio showed his bravery by sacrificing himself for Geppetto, to save him from the terrible dogfish, or Monstro. And, you know, Monstra, as the giant whale grim is now known, is likely going to play some factor in the story. Maybe Penny's going to be swallowed whole, maybe Pietro will eventually, but I honestly don't think that necessarily needs to tie in that directly. I think Penny just sacrificing herself to save her friends, giving the Maiden power over to Nora, and dying in the process would be enough to fit that self-sacrifice bill. Not that it already wouldn't be fulfilled by her sacrificing herself to get the message out to all of Remnant and then falling from Amity Coliseum, so I think she would have that bravery, selflessness, and self-sacrifice pretty well fulfilled to fit that overall Pinocchio inspiration at the very least. But I do think this would fit. And also, Nora becoming the next Winter Maiden would fit very well, given the previous theory that I've had about who could be the next Winter Maiden. Freya is a name inspired from Norse mythology. Nora is inspired by Thor. You know, the Norse mythology would tie in very well. And also, maidens have been known to summon thunder at times, aka Vernal back in Volume 5, or Raven back in Volume 5, where they were trying to mask it as Vernal was doing it, etc. But Nora, being inspired by Thor, being able to summon the lightning would be, well, it would be very fitting. Whosoever finds themselves worthy shall hold the power of Thor, and Nora has been struggling with her own self-worth at this point. And with the way that she's self-sacrificed as well, pushing her semblance past its limits to be able to help her friends and help Penny in that way, well, she's definitely proven herself worthy, and I think it would be a kind of a fitting thing for Nora's story as well to have the Maiden powers passed onto her, especially since the story itself seems to be hinting that Nora is going to go through some sort of change this volume, as she's been struggling with her own self-identity separate from Ren. And obtaining the Maiden powers would certainly give her a larger role in the events that will shape the future of Remnant, so that would possibly help her find out her own self-worth. Not that she needs the Maiden powers for that. As I mentioned in that episode review, episode 3 of Volume 8, we already know as the viewers who Nora is, and I'm sure many of her friends do as well, and appreciate all she's been able to contribute and her positive outlook on everything around her. And eventually she will realize that herself. Perhaps the Maiden powers will help her along that path, but I think the most important factor will be when she reunites with Ren and his unlocked semblance, or evolved semblance, and how it's kind of helped him realize his own feelings that no one is replaceable. Well, Nora struggling with her own self-worth, she is certainly not replaceable, and especially not to Ren, as she is likely the most important person in his life, etc., and all of that will come to fruition. So it'll be a good story moment for Nora overall. Not to mention, it's also recently been pointed out to me that it would fit very well for Nora to retrieve the relic from the vault under Atlas Academy, because we may have already been hinted at who's going to obtain each relic all the way back in Volume 1 of RWBY, when the students at Beacon Academy retrieved the relics from the Emerald Forest. Yang retrieved a relic, and she was the one who retrieved the Relic of Knowledge. Nora retrieved a relic, as well as Jean and RWBY, and I think it would be very fitting for each of them to retrieve a relic now. Yang gets the Relic of Knowledge. Nora, in this case, would get the Relic of Creation. Jean, I've been saying, is kind of destined to get the Relic of Destruction for a while now, because it is a sword. It would replace Crocea Moore's, which I believe its name is actually Yellow Death, so death, destruction, kind of fitting there. And then RWBY, being the one who's had to make all of these choices moving forward, well, she would be the one to ultimately get the Relic of Choice, housed under Beacon Academy, back where everything began. I feel like making a separate theory video on who's going to obtain each relic. That'll probably be next week or within the next couple of weeks, but yeah, this seems to all fit together very well, that Penny will end up sacrificing herself because she simply won't recover from the injuries and will want to protect her friends, same with Nora, and so Penny will sacrifice herself, passing the powers on to Nora. Nora will get the Relic of Creation from the vault under Atlas Academy and use it to revive Penny, or at least create a human vessel for Penny to reside in, and then using Atlas technology and likely the remainder of Pietro's aura to bring Penny back to life. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Does this chain of events make sense, that Penny will pass on the Maiden powers to Nora and be subsequently revived when the Relic of Creation is removed from its vault? I think it fits with a lot of the different story aspects and the inspirations for Nora and for Penny especially, so, you know, I think it kind of all fits, but I'm curious to know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.